I'm Billy Ryan, and this is the No One Is Watching podcast, where we explore high-performing teams, individuals, and leaders, and dig deep to find out what makes them tick. This show highlights the DNA shared by elite performers, the process by which they leverage that talent, and ultimately helps you apply those lessons to your own life, business, or team.
Aaron, you're a Midwest kid, aren't you?
Yeah, born and raised in South Detroit. So I grew up in.
Sounds like a song lyric I've heard.
Yeah, it is. It's something like that. But yeah, just grew up about 45 minutes south of Detroit in a small, very rural area.
Okay.
And back when I was a kid, it was kind of a big deal to go into town, which was the smallest of little towns. So looking back on things, it was a great place to grow up in a great era. I was born in '75, so a lot of childhood was in the 80s, and great baseball back then. The Tigers were just amazing, and then people loved their sports teams, and Detroit was thriving. So it was a great place to be born and raised.
Yeah, you're the heyday of the Trammell Whitaker Tigers.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, what a team! What a team!
Tram's a great dude. So rural, you said. So you're out running around the fields, playing sports, just kind of simpler times type childhood.
Very simple. When I was 10. My parents bought, it was my mom's grandparents' farm, and it was just a throwback, I think it was on about 80 to 90 acres, and just lots of fields, dead end, dirt country road. It's a great start of a country theme song.
Yeah, there we go. We've already touched on 2 song themes already.
That's right. So somewhere between, South Detroit and then the dirt road anthem, so
yeah.
When somebody came down the road, we figured it had to be a visitor. And, of course, things were so simple. We didn't have cable television. We didn't have video games. We didn't have city water. We didn't have air conditioning. We didn't have insulation in the upstairs because it was too pricey to heat it. But, looking back, what a blessing. We learned how to play. We were outside. We were playing in creeks, catching crayfish. We were fishing. We were riding bikes for miles just to even see another, area. So it was a really great, special place to grow up. And I think that a lot of that kind of grounded me in who I am today. It also taught me how to work. My dad was a great worker, great work ethic. He was a school teacher. And being the oldest of 9 children, that salary didn't quite get us as far as we needed to be.
Right.
And so he would come home. Of course, we had a small farm back then. They sold off some of the land. A lot of the land was sold off, but we had a small farm. My dad also would always be working construction jobs in the summer. So I would get pulled into those, whether it be doing a deck or doing a shingle job for roof or any kind of remodeling or additions. We always stayed busy. And I think that taught my siblings and myself, a good, strong work ethic. And I look at everybody today, my siblings are all great workers. They all know how to get things done.
I bet. Even the baby?
Well, even the baby. Yeah. Even the baby. We tease my brother, we tease my youngest brother that he had it a little bit easier than the rest of us, but he will disagree because he was the last boy at home. And so he had a lot of responsibility as well.
Fair enough. What was the age? How old were you when he was born? Because you said you were the oldest.
Yeah. About 18. Yeah, I think I was 18 when he was born. So I was one of the, maybe not 18, maybe 17. So I was one of the guys that had something really cool at home. I had friends come over. We'd get done with baseball practice and we'd go play with my little brother, messing with him and wrestling him and teaching him how to swing. And he was a switch hitting shortstop and, a good ball player. We each think we had a part of that kind of helped push him. So it was good times. Life was simple back then. We didn't have social media. We didn't have all the distractions. I didn't feel like I was missing out or left out. Yeah, we didn't have cable TV, and it was fun to go watch ESPN at my buddy's house. But, I read Baseball America.
Yeah.
Where that was like the highlight of my month, getting Baseball America and really studying
it in the mailbox, the whole deal. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
it's funny. I try not to get on my soapbox too often, but I can't help myself, right? Because it's just, don't get me wrong. Like, there's so many things about the technology and everything we have right now. It's wonderful. but you can never go back. So if, I think about my kids that, grow up with the things at their fingertips that they have now. And I feel like I'm, 75 years old saying, well, when I was a kid, you couldn't fast forward through commercials, or, you had to wait by the radio with a tape recorder to record the song that you liked, like all these little things that you're like, man, I'm just so old. But
yeah,
to your point, like
my first
taught. Go ahead.
Yeah, my first couple years in the minor leagues, there was only a few people that had cell phones. So it was like the throwback movies where you'd wait for the payphone and you'd bang if somebody was on the payphone too long. And that, my kids look at that and goes, "What year was that?" Not that long ago.
Right. Yeah. Did they have cars back then?
Yeah, mid-90s.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I mean, I got my start in baseball and scouting, and we had the internet and technology and phones and everything, right? But you think back to before the internet, before cell phones, these guys are writing paper reports, and they're stopping at payphones to call in, give the update in the game they were just at, and they're mailing in their expense reports, their scouting reports. It's like, wow. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to go back to that, but there's the nostalgia and a romance about that too, where it forced you to, be creative, and it forced you to work hard, and it forced you to do some things that you just, you don't have to remember anybody's phone number now, right? Like you had to remember your buddy's phone number back then.
That's right. And the scouts back then, of course, I don't have as much interaction with scout today, but back when we were, coming up through high school and stuff, the scouts were so neat. They were just cool.
They're characters, right?
Oh my gosh. They were at the field early, watching pregame, trying to pick up the little things to give them advantage. Nowadays, they got it a little bit easier. They get to get online and check the highlight profile films, but I would love, seeing the old scouts at the games and, American Legion ball in the summer, and they'd be there early carrying their briefcase, and you got to build a little bit of a relationship with them. One guy, my family got to know a little bit, a guy named Tony Lucadella, who signed a lot of major leaguers. Yeah. Mike Schmidt was one of his prize recruits. So he kind of dominated the Midwest, and there's books about him. He saw things that people didn't see. Yeah. And that's just neat. That's just cool.
It is. It's real cool. And, it's kind of, it touches my heart on that stuff, because it's akin to that whole generation, right? Once that's gone, we don't get it back, because we have nobody that has that sort of anchor point or perspective on it. And
that's right.
Scares me a little bit, right? For sort of the future of our society. But it's funny when you're talking about the old scouts. I mean, you think it's like a caricature and it's sort of cartoonish, and then you meet some of them that are actually like that. And I remember when I was at the commissioner's office, they had like a fire sale. They were cleaning out their office, and they just got rid of all this old stuff, right? All this old memorabilia. I mean, nothing like valuable, but just like art on the wall and whatever, right? Old bobbleheads. And there was this, it used to be on the wall somewhere in the office. It was probably a 4-foot square photo of this old time sort of really famous scout, Mike Brito, I believe was his name. He go out with the Dodgers, and he had the mustache, and he had the fedora, and he had like the plaid blazer, and he had the radar gun. I'm like, I gotta have that. And I'm living in Manhattan in like a 600 square foot apartment. I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do to this, but I'm taking it, and I like brought it home in the subway. I'm like, I'm just gonna have this photo,
Just fitting through the subway with a great big old photo.
They're like, what is this guy doing? So did you get scouted out of high school?
A little bit, and I was a late bloomer for sure. I had a late birthday, and I think to put it mildly, I had a terrible arm. I was very slow, and I didn't really drive the ball. I was a good contact hitter.
Okay.
And in fact, there was a scout in Michigan. I don't know his real name, Whitey, and he was with the Mariners. And my dad was our coach, and Whitey thought that I was his son, because my dad was a younger dad. He had me when he was 20. And Whitey said to my dad one day, he goes, "Bob, what happened to your brother's arm?" And my dad said, "Nothing, man. That's the way it is."
Nothing happened to it.
Yeah. I think the true story is my dad was trying to teach me how to hit left-handed when I was a kid, and I picked up throwing left-handed.
Got it.
And truth is, even through high school, it was a very, very bad arm. And I had to work like unbelievably to just get it to be average. And through college, I started lifting weights and a lot of weight training and throwing a lot of long toss. I think by my last year in the minor leagues, it got, actually even in the minor leagues and maybe my last couple of years of college, it got to where it was respectable. It was decent for a first baseman. And then in the minors, I don't think I didn't embarrass myself in left field, which was a great, everybody knows the guy with the rocket doesn't play left field. He plays right field. But it was to where it was an average left fielder arm. And that was a good accomplishment for me, knowing where I came from. I remember just my Legion coach, throw the damn ball. I was at first base, and turning two was a chore for me. So I think the scouts in high school, they knew who I was, not scouted very heavily. My first year, I had an appendix rupture in high school. It kind of really didn't play my senior year. And back then, a lot of the scouting happened between your junior and senior year. I didn't play my senior year till the very end. And so I ended up going to a small school called Madonna University in Michigan. Okay. And it was really because I had no other options. A few schools were talking to me, Western Michigan, Eastern, Central. And so I went to Madonna. They didn't have engineering, which is what I wanted to study. But they had an up-and-coming NAIA baseball team. We did pretty well there. We won a lot of games. We won some big games. We got a little bit of attention. And I still wasn't on anybody's radar. And an umpire told me one day at first base, he said, man, you're swinging good today or something like that. And I said, yeah. He was like, well, what, thank you. What's your game plan? I said, well, I'm hoping to go somewhere a little bigger next year so I can get a little bit more attention. He said, well, I got to tell you, he goes, I'm in the circle and you got all the attention you need right here. And I said, really? And nobody, back then it was, you wait for something in the mail.
Yeah.
And so I started getting a little bit of attention my freshman year in college. I went to Southern Illinois, transferred to Southern Illinois. Dan Callahan was the coach there. And I think that not knowing it at the time was one of the best decisions I ever made. They were just in a hotbed of scouting. It was like, Carbondale, Illinois is kind of in the middle of nowhere, but you're a couple hours from St. Louis. You're a few hours from Chicago. You're a few hours from Cincinnati. You get Indianapolis is, 4 hours away. And so within a driving distance, Nashville, Tennessee is on the other side. So you're just kind of in that nice little hub.
Yeah.
And back then, making decisions on what you could just read in newspapers or Baseball America, they got a lot of guys, getting drafted out of that conference, the Missouri Valley. And Wichita State was one of the best teams in the country.
Oh, yeah.
And so when I'm freshman year, between my freshman and sophomore year, I was deciding where to go. College, I was starting to get some nice attention from, a couple Big Ten schools and a lot of Mid-American schools. And then Southern Illinois was kind of the outlier. And I looked at Baseball America, and I physically went through every single draft pick. I used to put it in the appendix back then.
I love it.
And I noticed that the Missouri Valley had, 2 times as many players drafted as the Big Ten. And this would have been in 94. And I said, you know what? This must be the real deal. Even though I never heard of this conference, really, this must be the real deal baseball school that the best one that has interest in me. So I decided to go down there, and what a great decision from a baseball perspective. From Wichita State, to Southwest Missouri State was having some big time players, and Creighton had a couple guys that were, really doing well, and Evansville had a couple major leaguers. It was almost like every team had a couple major leaguers, and as eventual major leaguers, and as those guys would come through, scouts were just flourishing. And we had my junior year, we had Wichita State come visit us, and they had Braden Looper, and that was the flagship. But every guy on their team ended up having at least a nice minor league career, and half of them had nice major leagues career. Finally get to Sunday, and I'm just battling my butt off to have a good series against Wichita, and it was 4 games. We get to the 4th game, and the rumor was they were throwing a freshman. I'm like, thank God, we're finally going to get some relief. And it'd be Nate Robinson, Robertson, left-hander, throwing 92, 93. I think I had the hat trick, struck out 3 times.
Right.
But that was the type of conference that, every day you had to come battle, because the guy on the hill was the real deal. And what a great conference it was back then.
I love the story about you doing your own homework, right? Like it's easy to just go, Big Ten, right? Everybody knows the Big Ten, right? And I'm going to go there, and you actually did some digging, and I feel like now kids are looking at, they're looking at all the rankings and data that's available, and all these other things that they have at their fingertips. Data is great if you're looking at the right data, right? And to your point, obviously you wanted to play pro ball. That was your aspiration. So you're like, what's going to allow me to study what I want to study and put me in a spot to get that chance?
Right. I go down there not knowing anybody, and I think I met my wife, I don't know, 2 or 3 days on campus, and now here we've been married 26 years. So
there you go. It was a good life decision.
Baseball wasn't the only thing that worked out for me down there.
That's right. Things happen for a reason sometimes. So what round did you get drafted in?
I got drafted in the 26th, which I remind myself commonly nowadays, I might not have even been drafted today. Things are different.
They used to have the 50 rounds. They used to have unlimited rounds. The most famous one's probably Piazza, right? I think it was 62nd. There's plenty of guys that have gone and done things, but 26 rounds. So you're getting a bus or a plane ticket and maybe like a brown bag lunch and saying, go get him, Aaron, right?
The best thing that I, and didn't have an agent or a lot of advice. And actually my draft day was really funny as well. My dad was a school teacher and he goes to work, and my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, she came up to my house. I said, I think there's a pretty good shot I get drafted. I've spoken to a couple dozen teams and they tell me I'm going to get drafted. So waiting for the phone call like anybody else, pins and needles for this chance. My dad was teaching. My mom ran some errands, and I'm watching the Field of Dreams on the big old tube.
Perfect.
And the Yankees call, and they say, "Oh, we drafted you, and we're going to come sign you tomorrow." It's pretty cool, they're going to get in a car. Tim Kelly was the scout. He's going to jump in the car and drive from Chicago to sign me. And no advice, no discussion. He just shows up. He said, "Here's what we're going to offer you. We're going to offer you $3,000."
Okay.
And I said, "Ooh, I gotta get taxed on that." "Oh yeah, you're gonna get taxed on that too." Well, there goes half of it. Senior? Pardon me?
Were you a junior or a senior? Senior.
I was a senior, so not a lot of draft stock as a senior draft. But the best thing I did is I said, "Hey, any chance you can pay for my last year of college?" Because I transferred, I lost some credits.
Okay.
I had good grades, but it's going to take one more year.
Yeah.
And he said, let me call into the front office. Did he really have to call into the front? Well, anyway, he came back and he said, Mark Newman, who ironically enough, I didn't know at that time, but Mark was a Southern Illinois guy and he had been watching me.
Okay.
And I was an academic All-American. And Mark said, I want to pay for his last year of engineering school. So I went back my first 2 years in the minor leagues. I went back every year to finish my engineering degree, which proved out to be a really smart decision.
That's great, man.
But they paid for it. And that was great because then you're talking, your housing and your meals and food and incidentals. Everything was covered by the Yankees. Yeah. So that was, we don't get those kind of scholarships in baseball, as you know.
Right.
So I kind of felt like a football player.
Yeah, right. Like, this is big time.
I just get to focus on school and sports and not having to split firewood on the weekends.
Yeah, there you go. So what was the transition to minor league ball? Speaking of hard transitions, right? You're on. But where'd you start your career in the minors?
I started my career in Oneonta, New York.
Okay.
And just so many questions. You get drafted and it's like, oh, you're going to report to Tampa very quickly, and then you're going to go to Oneonta, and you're like, well, where do you stay? What do you do? I got to bring like towels and pillows, and just figure that out. So literally, you go down to Tampa for a couple of days. They had a little workout. They reassigned everybody to short season A at the time, which I think that's gone nowadays. I think.
Yeah.
And you literally get to Oneonta, New York, which had a great history. But you go to Walmart and you just buy some cheap pillows and sheets and away you go. And it was just a tremendous experience. I always say I was very fortunate to play 2 years there. Most people wouldn't say that.
Right.
But I think my first year, I was behind some players that were drafted higher, early round draft picks.
Sure.
And truth be told, I'm sure I was slated to be released my second year of pro ball. And I get down to spring training, and the groundskeeper said to me, he goes, "Are you Jonesy?" And I said, "I think so. There's probably a few of us running around here, but they go, the word on the whiteboard," he goes, "You didn't hear this from me, but the word on the whiteboard was transformation next to your name." And I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Whatever you did in the off season worked." And so we had a nice meeting at the end of spring training, and they said, "You're not going to the full A, but we're going to play you every day at short season. And we want you to show us that we made the right decision." And so I went up to Oneonta again. I played every day. I hit just under 300, had a few home runs. We won the Penn League. Joe Arnold was the manager who had a nice college career from, I think, Florida. Mm-hmm. And it was just a great experience. I would say most of the players on that team got a crack in the big leagues. And, wow. We just did a fantastic job that summer. And from that point, I had a couple of good years. My third year, after hitting just a tick under 300, I went right to the Penn League. I'm sorry, the Florida State League, mm-hmm. and played every day again. I'm a 26th round draft pick, and I'm getting to play every day. Yeah. And for some crazy reason, because I was never super fast, I was right at the top of triples and doubles for the Florida State League that year, and that would have been, I think, 98. And now I'm starting to think there's a chance that I could do this for a living. There's a chance. Yeah. And I thought my first year, I'm just hanging on, fighting to survive. Second year, okay, I'm finding my way. Third year, I'm like, I could make a living doing this.
This might happen. Yeah.
So it was a good run while it lasted, for sure. But I think there's something about you reach your capacity in anything in life. And I can honestly say I reached that. And it was the ability to adjust your swing once it was started. Uh-huh. And when you get to face double-A pitching and they're able to make that ball move a little better than they could when they were 19, 20, 21, and they're making the ball break that last 10 feet, it didn't fare well for me.
Well, you're on a long list of people that fall into that category, so... Yeah. No, it's a great point, though. I mean, just, we're both biased on this end, but the adjustments you have to make, and it's not like a halftime, football adjustment, right? This is mid-pitch, mid-flight, mid-movement. You've got to adjust or you just got no shot. I think it's a great metaphor for life and getting, you can get by to a certain degree on talent. All of us can, right? That is a certain threshold that varies for everybody. And then there's that next sort of ceiling of work ethic and practice and passion and all the things that go into getting better. And then there's kind of that third tier in my mind where it's like, okay, you've maxed out that, but can you flip that switch? Have you tapped into that? Has somebody mentored you? Have you seen something where you can almost get that last extra couple percentage points out of your talent? And that's, it's a game of inches, right? So that in baseball, that's everything. That's the difference between making it to the big leagues and not. It's the difference between a homer and a double. It's the difference between Hall of Fame and, just a nice player.
Yeah. Well, and in business, it's the difference between a profitable income statement or a good earnings report or, up and coming future. And before we started this talk, we briefly spoke about, the market challenges that are present today as a result of the boom during COVID in our business. And that's what I'm working with our leaders a lot on today is how do we make that adjustment at the end? Because what worked for us, when we were rookies or smaller is not working today. As we knock on the door of $1 billion company, things have to change. We have to be, keep competitive, remain aggressive, but also be entrepreneurial and innovative in our way of thinking.
100%. Yeah, I have... It was a pleasant surprise for me when I got out of baseball and kind of got into the real world, so to speak. It wasn't that hard of an adjustment. I didn't have the subject matter expertise, but all the things you're touching on, right? I mean, it's the same philosophy. You're building a farm system, your pipeline of talent, right? You're always recruiting. You want to get somebody that's going to take your job someday. You got to develop them. You got to put systems in place. You got to have a hitting philosophy. You've got to have a strength and conditioning program. What's your culture going to be? All these things that are hallmarks of great organizations, right? Sports is the most visible and sort of attractive of that for a lot of folks. But it's, I just get a charge out of watching great businesses operate because I had a conversation with a buddy this morning. I said that, whether it was old school or new school at the time, it's like, I don't really care. I just appreciated if you had a vision and a philosophy and you just believed in it and just fully committed to it, right? You say, I don't like the new age stuff. I'm like, well, and I remember being at a game in instructional league at our complex, and there was a team that was shifting every pitch, right? And some of our old veterans are, this is ridiculous. This is instructional. They need to be getting reps. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But say what you want. They are convicted that they believe this is the right approach. They're going to do it all the way down to the lowest level from the first day they step on campus, right? That's what they're doing. So I respect that, right? You don't have to agree with the vision or the philosophy, but the commitment to it, I think, is what really escapes a lot of people. It's
Sure.
that I'm going to see this one through all the way to the end.
Well, and you touched on this a little bit as well on just the transformation from baseball into business. But, when I look at what some of my former teammates are doing, I'm just in awe with the success that they've had. And, many times, and I'm sure some people are saying this about me too, when we were hanging out in our 20s, I never saw that coming.
Yeah, right.
I never saw a person as a vice president of this major company or this person as a CEO or president or, but you look back and you say, wow, my teammates are doing some really amazing things. And it's those lessons of competitiveness and survival and grit and tenacity. And that's what helps them survive in their current careers and professions.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's easy to sort of discount former athletes, because you say, well, that was just a physical skill set that has, they're just naturally gifted or they're big and strong. Like, who cares? That's got nothing to do with sales, or it's got nothing to do with logistics, and really all the things you touched on. And that's what I realized as I got out of sports on a day-to-day was that's the stuff I loved about it. Like, I loved the behind closed doors meetings and the early weight room sessions and all this stuff that went in, because I knew it was going to make me better. It was going to make us better. And you're in it together and you're learning new things. And you're like, that guy's better than me. Like, what's he doing to get better? Like, all these things that I still carry with me to this day that I think a majority of athletes do, right? It's in your blood. You play long enough, it's just part of who you are. And I realized as you start talking to people, particularly young people that are maybe graduating college or they're making early career transitions, I had never really seen anything else for a long time. I played in college and then I worked for 15 years in the game. And it was, so you were surrounded by a certain type of person for the most part. And then you get out and you're like, wait, not everybody is wired this way. And you start seeing that you're like, they don't have it. They don't care. Or I couldn't wrap my mind around it. And it took me a while. It made me a better leader adapting to that. But that's something I tell kids these days. I'm like, man, lean on that. Like, don't underestimate yourself. There's something to it. You don't know anything. Nobody's expecting you to know anything. But go compete and go get better and learn and grow. And like, you'll be fine. Just stay on that path. Just like when you're 7 years old and learn how to swing a baseball bat, just keep swinging the bat. It's going to get better.
Right. You run into that. And even in the back of my mind, when I was a kid, my dad would say, work on the tee. You get some good tee work in every day. Work on your swing. Know your swing in and out. And of course I did it, but it wasn't like with conviction. I'm like, okay, I'm doing this because my dad says I should. Well, then you get, and that stuck with me. I used the tee through high school and college. We were playing at Arizona State, Southern Illinois. It was one of the things, Arizona State would bring us out for 4 games to show us what, the baseball was like in Arizona. Uh-huh. And we go watch the Mariners in spring training. And Buhner was not playing that day. Jay Buhner was hitting off of a tee. And it was amazing to me that he could hit the little triangle part of the L screen probably 7-8 times out of 10 at the other end of the pitching cage or the batting cage. And he was there, and it was just one after another. He had somebody setting the ball on for him. We went and watched the game. The big hurt, Randy Johnson, was throwing. We watched him throw a couple innings. We came back. Buhner was still hitting off the tee. And I use that example a lot today with kids. This is one of the best hitters in baseball at the time. I think he was having 30, 40 home runs. And there he was working on bat control over and over and over again. And you're going, why? Why was he doing that? He's still learning. He's still adapting. And that's where, as a business leader, you can never stop. There's always something better you can get out of yourself and your organization. And now we're owned by Toyota, and the big word is Kaizen, and you don't understand it until you work for a Japanese company. But it's always about continuous improvement. And I love it. I love that word. I love that principle. How do we continue to get better as an individual, as a person, as an organization, as a team? It's just so powerful. Never be satisfied. Always look to improve. And it's about little things.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm a big culture person, and I think it's a lot of it can ring hollow. You can mail it in. You can just slap on a bumper sticker or a motivational poster, whatever you want to do. But just the whole concept of Kaizen, I love. And if you had to drill it down to one thing, right, like that's it for me, because that encapsulates pretty much everything, right? It encapsulates you as a leader, it encapsulates everybody in your team, every single person in your organization, because it's broad enough where it kind of it applies to everyone at every stage of their career, but it's also specific enough. Like, what are you doing today to get better? And that's right. And the other parallel, right, is you're bringing in new people all the time to the organization. There's new draft classes coming in, right. And so if you don't work, somebody else is working, right? The new kid who's hungry is going to come in, he's going to log some hours, and he's going to figure something out that you might not, right? So that's the healthy fear, right? The competitive fear.
And it's good to have that fear, because as business, especially, in our business and in most businesses, if you're not first, then you might as well be last, because second doesn't do anything for you. And,
if we're going to win, once said.
Exactly.
Right.
If we're going to win, we have to be the best. Yeah. We can't be second.
Yeah. Yeah. I again, had a recent conversation about some of my experiences and when I was with the Braves, my first year there, we were at a little bit of a pivot point. The roster was probably good enough to supplement a little bit and contend for a wild card, but you don't do this to contend for a wild card, right? You want to win a championship. No. So it's like, Let's just take a massive step backwards 1 year earlier than we probably have to, and reach for the brass ring, right? And they wound up ultimately being successful in that. But that's about sort of expectation and goal setting, and what are we here for every day, right? Like, we're just here to cash a paycheck, or are we just here to hit a sort of threshold of gross profit? What are we looking for? We're trying to be the best.
That's right.
What was your leadership philosophy coming out, if you even had one, right? You're young, you don't know any better. You're a little bit older at the point in the minor leagues, but you had your degree, you transitioned out of baseball. What was your expectation? What was your vision? What was your thought process as you end your playing career and start the next stage of your career?
For me, it was about balancing a budget, to be honest with you. Okay. Engineering jobs were really booming, especially in the Detroit area in the early 2000s. Ford had just launched a lot of new products, and they were, paying nice salaries and giving people a nice bonus. Mm-hmm. And I said, some of my friends in the minor leagues were starting to get pretty nice off-season jobs. Hey, I'm going to go dabble my toes in quality or production, and just that way if I'm done playing a few years down the road, I don't, come to the table without any experience. Right. So I literally looked at this position at Ford Motor Company as a quality exterior engineer for the Ford Focus line. And I said, I'm going to just give it a try, see if I like it. I wasn't committed to being done with baseball. I wanted to see how I liked the job. I needed to make a little bit of money. We were, driving one car. We had a baby on the way. It was the third song of our approach. We talked about the dirt road. But this one was, a lot of financial challenges and rotating between cities. It was hard for my wife to have a stable job. She had her degree in elementary education, again, also with a baby on the way. So I was like, let's get in and try this. And I didn't know if I could be passionate about engineering. I didn't know if I could be passionate about cars. I wasn't a car guy. But I got in and we were working on an assembly line in Detroit for the Ford Focus, and it became just an amazing amount of fun. Challenges were crazy. We were building 420,000 vehicles a year. These Ford Focuses were fresh and hot, and they were coming off the line.
Yeah.
And there was so many challenges with, fit and finish and appearance and quality. And there was always something that was really captivating. And I was very transparent with my manager at the time. I told him, I said, there's a chance I'm going to go back to spring training, but we're going to see how we're going to play it out. And as the winter came, he actually strongly encouraged me to go back to spring training. He said, I think you should go back. You're going to regret it if you don't. And, I had a new baby. I was really enjoying my job. I said, I think I'm going to take a break. I'm going to stick with this. And I wouldn't say I didn't have a philosophy. I was a very low level engineer, but I typically found ways to get along with people. And I was a salary position working in a heavy union facility. Mm-hmm. The union was as strong as can be in Detroit. The Ford Focus was a profitable product with high expectations.
Sure.
And I found ways to get along with the UAW, to work on the same side, to understand their perspective, what they really wanted. I'm 25 years old, and I found myself asking, why are they upset with us engineers? Why are they upset with the corporate office? Well, it's because we didn't do a good job. We gave them bad quality. This ruined their day. So now we have to Kaizen, have to improve. We have to give them a better product. And I took that approach, and next thing you know, people started noticing that I started moving the whole shape of the environment on this assembly line, just for the bumpers and the lights. So then they started saying, hey, how about if you work a little bit in the fenders too? We're having a problem over here. Can you start to work? We're having a quality issue.
Did you have that ability to sort of relate and connect with people of different, walks of life innately? Or do you think your athletic and playing career, Marley ball specifically, right? You're dealing with people from all walks of life. Did that shape it at all? What do you think?
I never felt like I had that quality in college and in the minor leagues. But the truth is, I probably was just more to myself and introverted, kind of more of a quiet leader.
Okay.
I never wanted to be the most popular. I never wanted to be the hit of the parties, because usually that was for the wrong reasons.
Right.
So I usually kind of like to just fly under the radar, and do my job and lead by example and try to bring people up instead of being the most vocal. And it's the same approach I took at the early days on the Ford assembly plant, was just help understand why we've ruined their day. Why are they so angry, or why are they happy? What makes them tick? And I started to get a little bit of a reputation for making things go well at the plant. My leaders started to get, positive kudos. I started getting a few promotions here and there. And then a few years in, they asked me to lead an R&D group to develop LED lights. And this was back when there wasn't really any LED lights on a vehicle. And that was a lot of fun. That was a big breakthrough opportunity to have a skunk works and have my own team and do something that hadn't been done before. And it was a tremendous amount of fun. It was a big challenge, bringing a team together. How are we going to be successful here? Because this hasn't been done. Rule number one is you got to hire and surround yourself with a lot of people smarter than you. And that's what I did. I didn't know calculations of LEDs and how to produce light and how to handle heat. But when you get some really good-hearted scientists and PhDs on your team that actually care, we started moving some great big needles, and even got more and more attention. And that's when I realized the leader of the show, and you see this naturally in baseball too, but the leader of the show gets the attention for the right or the wrong reasons.
Right.
And then there's the natural tendency of, do you accept that or do you deflect it? And if you deflect it and give the credit to your team, that only motivates them more, and it creates more and more people that want to be part of your team, because you're seeing things successful, and you're then seeing a leader that, empowers and embraces the concept of team, which is attractive to a lot of people. So we really started moving some great needles within this small group, and had a ton of fun. It came to an end when I met Bill Bastian just on a by chance interview. They were hiring for a general manager in Detroit, and I could tell it was an up and coming startup company. And I said it wouldn't hurt. My brother actually saw the job description on monster.com back then, and he said, "This is a really cool job description. You're not qualified, but maybe you should try to meet with this guy." So lo and behold, Bill Bastian called me back, wanted to meet in Detroit, and I was just blown away with all the great characteristics. I mean, the humility, the confidence, the leadership, the strength. He truly was just a genuine salt of the earth person that cared about every one of his employees. And I said, back then it was like a $30 or $40 million business. And, I said, this guy with these types of principles and work ethic and just foundation, he's going to do some amazing things. This is the type of leader that you hear about and you never get a chance to meet. Yeah. And I just jumped on his coattails, and we started making a lot of nice things happen in the company. And of course, a lot of good fortune, a lot of things that happened that you might say, oh, they were lucky, or we were very fortunate, or we didn't deserve this type of success. But it boils down to the type of people we were hiring. And when you hire and build your team with the type of people that we do, good luck and good fortune just has a way to find you.
Yeah, it's funny.
And on the flip side, the same can be said on the opposite.
100%. 100%. And I guess that's what we were talking about a second ago, like the simplicity of some of the best philosophies and leadership, approaches. It's just treat people the right way, right? I mean, it's stuff your parents taught you when you were a kid. You do it every single day, rain or shine. And if you do it enough, you don't waver when time gets tough.
Yeah.
If you just stay in the game long enough, good things are probably going to happen for you. And if you do that at an elite level, which it sounds like Mr. Bastian did, then tremendous things can happen, because you're just showing up every day. You're bringing in more good people. You're doing more good things. And
that's right.
That's what I love, just the simplicity
the pride, the pride that Bill would take, seeing somebody promoted to the next role or taking on the next challenge. And even if it was the person cleaning the offices after hours, Bill would work to try to find a way to make that person more successful and challenge them. And it would be not uncommon to see that person end up doing an important role, even more important role within the organization. And the overachievers that guy could create were just amazing. And it's, it's what really has kept this company now. We're 74 years old, and just so many great success stories, all brought about by strong leadership for 74 years, 3 generations of Bastian.
Hey, real quick, if you're getting value from the show, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, and if you're so inclined, go ahead and leave a 5-star review while you're at it. It helps more people like you find this podcast, and honestly, that simple form of support, it makes a difference. All right, back to the conversation.
In your role now, how do you approach filling that pipeline, right? Bringing in the new generation, more people into that group that values culture and values those things as much as you do.
Yeah. I encourage our leaders to spend time with the people that they want to bring in, because as soon as the culture gets infected, or people don't see and have the same guidelines, same principles, then you start to weaken your brand. So I really believe in spending time with the people that you're going to offer or bring into the company. And sometimes you got to be careful, because it can get too long and you can wear people down, and they might have multiple offers. We hired 500 people in 2022. 500 people. And you think about, that's a lot of people. Every month, we're bringing in another 30, 40 people that we need to train and onboard and acclimate into our culture. But you have to spend time with them. And I always say, just try to have lunch or a coffee and get to know them personally, and see if you're going to be able to relate more than just technical assessment.
Yeah.
because the intentions and the goodwill and the work ethic and the attitude, that's infectious, and that makes people around them better. And you can have the best individual contributor, but if you hire the type of people that make everybody a better teammate, then you're really making the needle move. And for a while, I used to interview every single person in the company, and this was probably up to about 2017. And that was an expectation Bill had, because Bill met every single person in the company.
So what was your role at that point? Were you CEO at that point?
No, I was president. 2014, I was the president, and I did meet every person that we were going to extend an offer to.
Okay.
When we got into 2020 and beyond, I think one year we hired 400, the next year we hired 500. It was just too much. Yeah. So then I wanted to meet every manager and above. Mm-hmm. And I wanted them to meet me first, so they knew me personally and maybe knew that, I don't know, I wasn't a stiff, wasn't genius.
An empty suit.
I was just a real person that believed in working hard, believed in family, believed in good ethics, believed in good teamwork. I believe in having fun at work. Life is, think about how miserable life would be if you went somewhere where you didn't like every day for your life. So find people that are happy, that make others around them happy, and your customers and your suppliers, your partners, everybody notices. They notice what you bring to the table every day.
100%.
And, our projects are long. Sometimes our projects last a couple of years. And just as much as the price point or the technical solution is, are they going to want to work with this team for the next 2 years every day? Sometimes 12, 14 hours a day. And our customers tell us routinely, and some of the biggest customers, your people are just different. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. And that's right. What we have to do. I can't take credit for that, because the Bastian family did that from 1952 to 2014. So I'm just trying to fight like heck to keep that culture and that family.
Part of that is knowing what you want and knowing what you don't want. Right. So I imagine you were sort of the last checkpoint before those hires when you're still meeting everybody. So did you have somebody that was like, I mean, everybody that got to you was thumbs up from everybody, I imagine. And you were just kind of like, did you ever veto one because you just had a gut feeling that they weren't going to fit our culture?
All the time.
Yeah,
all the time. And I tell you, a couple times I went against my better judgment, and I learned from that, because it ended up being the wrong decision. Yeah. And usually that was somebody that was so technically amazing. Oh man, this is just the best robotics engineer or, vision, software programmer, whatever it might have been. Yeah. They're so technically strong. This is going to be incredible. And we need this talent on our team. And usually if there was a little bit of a spark of concern, that was ignited down the road. And, we have 1,500 employees today. And when I started, I think we had about 50 or 60. And the real world drama and things that happen out there, it really gets heightened when you have 1,500 employees, and you have to make sure you seal the cracks, because if there's cracks, it ends up spiraling, and that can affect customers, that can affect the market. It can affect a lot of different aspects of your business.
Sure. Yeah, I used to, I took the same exact approach when I was in baseball. There would be, you get a ton of people that want to work in baseball, and you get to see some of these resumes. You're like, holy smokes! Like, these people are way more qualified than I am, or way more intelligent, or way more accomplished, whatever it may be. And then I would always we gotta, they need to come out in person. We're not hiring anybody off of a phone interview or a video interview, and you're going to spend a lot of time with this person, right? And so, can I stomach it working 12 hours with this person? And can they stomach me, right? Because it's to your point, you just spend too much time together. And if you are, I think the biggest mistake an organization can make that really cares about culture and knows what they have it kind of dialed in, is you make those exceptions, right? You don't trust your gut, and then you just let it fester, because everybody else knows this guy's talented. This guy doesn't fit our team, right? He's not supposed to be here. So the longer you let that go, everybody else is like, well, maybe we don't really value XYZ as much as I thought we did, because this guy's here, right?
That's right.
And so it can become cancerous.
Yeah. And you really have to figure out a way as a business leader to ask the difficult questions early, because it doesn't get easier to ask them later.
Right.
And I'm sure I've given my senior director of HR fits sometimes, in walking a delicate line of asking just very, outright and forward questions. But I'm not doing this to make you uncomfortable, but it's on my mind.
Yeah.
And I have to ask you this. This is the way, if we go forward, this is the way I'm going to be every day. I'm going to just ask you a very difficult question if it's on my mind, so we can get it behind us and level set.
Yep.
And so, thankfully, our team has been just so stable. And I think it goes back to the type of people we hire. But after the acquisition, I've had to make 2 executive hires as the company's grown. We were ready for a CFO, and we were ready for a vice president of manufacturing. And I spent so much time with those candidates and those people that by the time they started, I knew their hobbies and interests, their families, their children, what they did on the weekends. Jim's into scouts and Travis is into missionary work. And by the time, and my team knew them, by the time they actually accepted the role, it was like you were bringing a friend on board that knew what you wanted to do and what you wanted to accomplish. And you knew that their morals and ethics and work and what they were bringing to the table was the right fit. And you just can't go into a relationship with a check the box mentality, or that's what you're going to get.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, you go on a couple of dates and you're like, hey, let's get married. Right. We'll find out a whole bunch of stuff about each other after we're married.
That's right.
That's not a great idea. I would always try to talk people, by the time it got to me, I would just try to talk the candidate out of the job, right? I would try to paint the bleakest picture I could. You're going to be working a ton here. You just sell them on all the cons. And if they're still in, because you don't want that worst day of the company's history is coming. You don't know when it's going to be, right? But it might be your first day, right? And so I don't want you to be like, hey, you told me it was going to be like this, and it's not, so you kind of want everybody walking in eyes wide open, because then they know as well as you do that, they're game. Like thick and thin will be okay. We'll get through it. You didn't sell them the bed of roses.
That's right.
Yeah. What's the biggest risk you've taken as a leader? It sounds like you're from a very family oriented, sort of culture focused organization, conservative, I would imagine, in the approach to kind of like protecting our lead, right? Instead of expanding our lead and protecting our group. Yeah. Have you taken some big risks since you've been in the chair?
Taking a lot of risks here, as the president of the company for sure, but even taking a step back, I think the biggest risk that I took at an early age was accepting this role to join Bastian. Mm-hmm. Having, in many regards, being associated with the automotive industry in Detroit is considered the promised land.
Yeah.
And I felt that for a while, I felt like I'm living the dream. I'm kind of in the who's who of automotive centric. I'm going to automotive trade shows. I'm becoming known amongst the supply group, and I'm being recruited by Nissan and Hyundai, and all these companies are coming after me, and I'm feeling like, wow, I could do this forever. And then it was so compelled by Bill Bastian's leadership style and what he brought to the table as a genuine person. I said, if the rest of the company is like that, this is going to be a lot of fun. We started our indoctrination training on Monday mornings at 8 a.m., which meant I had to travel to Indianapolis on a Sunday. And you'll like this. We finished our indoctrination training on a Friday afternoon by watching Hoosiers. Being an Indianapolis-based company, we're going to watch Hoosiers at the end of it, even though I had watched that show 100 times when I was a kid. We watched Hoosiers as a team, and then at 3:00 we could leave our indoctrination training.
So what kind of stuff are you guys doing in indoctrination training? Because people use that word, and now it has like a negative connotation, but I disagree with that, right? So I want to hear more about what did indoctrination entail.
Yeah, like this. We call it boot camp today, which is even a worse connotation.
Right.
But it's a lot of team building. It's getting to know the various organizations. It's visiting all the factories and looking at our project sites and talking to our customers and understanding our goals and our strengths and weaknesses. But then most importantly is, and it is really important, going to the driving range at night and having team-based competition, team-based scavenger hunts and word searches and just building a lot of fun. And I think the people at our company today, they build this bond that stays with them for the career at Bastian. But I remember coming down on a Sunday going, what did I just do? I spent 1 hour with Bill Bastian in a really crummy conference room in Detroit. And I resigned from my job, taking a total leap of faith for this Indianapolis-based company. When I worked in the auto industry, I was home every day by 5. This was going to require travel. It was a whole new world. It was a guy that saw an opportunity to build a global business. Think about the work that's ahead of me, and let's hope that it doesn't, it can't disrupt my family to the point where I end up on the wrong side of that stick.
Right.
So that was a big risk. And I'll never forget the relief on a Monday morning as we got to meet everybody in the office and what a positive outlook on life people had and what a friendly, Christian-based, just committed organization. And by noon, I knew I made the right decision. For me today, a lot of the decisions are investment-based. We're building a new world headquarters here in Noblesville, Indiana. It's a $200 million project.
Mm-hmm.
We are banking on the future of this company.
Yeah.
Where Toyota is banking on the future of our success and banking on the industry, and they're confident that we're going to do it. But you talk about $200 million is a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where you're so thankful to be part of a financially strong organization that doesn't waste a penny.
Right.
There is no frugality. I'm sorry, there is nothing but frugality, and there is no frivolousness at a organization like Toyota, but there's no limit to do what makes sense.
Yeah.
So, here's a small and up and coming company that now has 1,500 employees. We have a scattered approach, around 30 offices across the world. We want to make a global headquarters here in Noblesville, Indiana, and I only need $200 million to make that happen. So here we are. We're in the middle of it. Of course, we've seen this decline after COVID a little bit, but the industry's still bright and strong. We've made similar types of decisions. We just built a factory in India. And, you try to get all the data and facts in front of you. Everybody knows India's largest populated country in the world, growing faster than any other. A lot of opportunities, big business potential there. It's an underdeveloped market. We want to be there first. We want to be there with manufacturing capabilities. So we built that factory. That has not yet reached its potential. So if you're looking at my recent track record, we haven't proven that one yet, but we're gonna. There's no doubt about it. And people say, well, just send all the low end work to India. No, we're sending the high end complex work, like for the global market. They can do anything. They can do advanced research and development and vision and technology. And then, but of course we have this strong hub here in North America as well. We built our R&D facility out in Boise. And then a lot of people say, well, why Boise? We followed good people again. We had a great leader that we believed in. And he said, if you let me go to Boise, I know there's a lot of talent out there. It's like the up and coming Silicon Valley. It's like California without the drama of California. We're going to be super successful. And we've just knocked it out of the park. I think we have 40 R&D engineers and PhDs, and we're doing things that the market hasn't seen.
That's amazing.
It boils down to good people that have the right mind frame.
Yeah, and trusting them, right? Empowering me to go do it.
And trusting them. That's right.
So you talked a little bit about COVID. You've been with this company for a while now. You go through this. You talked about the insane spike in staffing and workload and growth and all of it. Was it hard you talked about your involvement had to scale back. Was it hard to hold true to kind of who you guys are as a group when you're seeing that level of explosive growth? Because sometimes you're trying to thread a needle when you're hiring somebody. And if you're hiring 30 in a year, you can usually thread that needle. If you're hiring 300, it's a different challenge.
Yeah. I think of course things got away from us a little bit at that pace. And we've had to kind of reground on the, I'm not saying it deviated too far from the right or the left. It just was a little bit of a wider sample size than we would have wanted at that time. So, getting back to the basics, living our core values, preaching our core values, letting know what the expectations are. I teach a core values class in our boot camps now. So first day, every new employee knows what our core value is and how we expect to go about our operations and our business. And I think it's important for people to know this. We have, just like everybody else, we've had to, open up our minds and think outside the box. It just, I'm going to be a little bit, cynical here, but it's not enough anymore to just go up to Purdue, which is right up the road, and hire, 50 engineers coming out of school a year. That was the approach for a lot of time. We get great people from Purdue, but as we transform, we need those great people from Purdue, and we need great people from every other city and state that we're in across the world.
Right.
And so we need to have those types of relationships. And like anything else, if you work on your relationships, you'll get the inside track. It can be with your customers, where you have the best information and the best positive intent. It can be with your suppliers that are pulling for your success and your partners. With the universities, if we have strong relationships, they'll know the type of people that we want and they'll look out for us. So I would say largely we've done really well, but when you have 2/3 of your people, Bill Bastian retired 3 years ago, and he was responsible kind of as a CTO responsibility when he was getting towards his retirement. He was responsible for the research and development and all the technology we were delivering. But he retired 3 years ago, and 2/3 of our people don't know him. That's how crazy the growth has been and how wild the transformation has been. So we've had to work really hard on the education of our core values and what we expect day to day. And we've done that.
Yeah, that's great. I love that story. Because that's the goal, right? You can build a business or have an organization that's small and mighty, and you just kind of do that thing, do that in perpetuity. But if you do everything well, odds are you're going to grow, right? And then when you start growing, to your point, you don't have to redefine it, but you probably have to re-examine what that means and where you go find it and how you assess for it. And you're still going to miss, right? Hiring people, right? It's like drafting players. It's hard. You're going to get fooled in interviews. Resumes are going to fool you. The first 6 months of somebody on the job, you can get fooled. Eventually, the true colors are going to show, and the fit is going to, reveal itself. But like we kind of touched on earlier, sometimes it's more powerful to me. You never want to do this, but it's almost more powerful to make an example of someone that doesn't fit, because those are the harder decisions, right? Especially if it's somebody that's uber talented, and you're like, look, you could go just be a rock star, any company you want, any one of our competitors, but not here. Okay.
Yeah.
And here's why. You don't fit the team ethos. And it seems like you guys are obviously very team centric. What does being a good teammate mean to you?
Right. And one of my favorite approaches is to take responsibility for something that's not working out. And managers oftentimes look at me like, well, how would you do that? And why would you do that? I said, it's really simple. You go to this individual who might be have the most raw talent and the best intellect. And you might say something to the effect of, you're by far and away the best engineer on the team. You got just the most unbelievable mind and, great potential here. You're the all-star that I want to develop, but I need to help you get to that point where you're appreciated and your contribution is valued. And I'm taking responsibility for that because I hired you. But where we're at right now is you're on an island and you're the best one on the island. But you know what? If you're the only one on the island, it's going to get really lonely. Yeah. And so how do I help you be successful in the team environment? Because that's what this company is all about. And I want to help you do that right now so we don't get 6 months down the road and we have another issue, So let's just address it right now. I'm taking responsibility, but from this point forward, we're going to outline the expectations so you can be successful on a team. And a lot of times that serves as a wake-up call. I've had people say, oh my goodness, I never realized that I was perceived in this manner. Thank goodness you told me. Thank God you told me. Thank you so much. I'm going to change today, and you will never have this feedback again. And I'll tell you, a very large percentage of the time that works, and they take ownership and they remember. And a lot of times they'll come back to you and say, remember back then, you don't have that concern anymore, do you? You haven't heard anything like that. For those that aren't capable of change, they get the heck out of there quick. They say, this guy doesn't appreciate me. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And I'm going to show him by going to work for your competitor. And I'll tell you, it is actually a relief to see the amount of people that stick here and turn their career into a lifelong career here at Bastian. And then you watch those that don't think that, we know what we're talking about or we know how to be good corporate citizens, and they continue to bounce around every 2 years. Every 2 years, it's a different type of setting, another company, another up-and-comer. A few years ago, it was robotics companies, and it was probably 5 years ago, taking all this great talent that, frankly speaking, we didn't want anymore. And then it became the vision companies taking from the robot companies, and now it's the AI companies taking from the vision companies. And it's always the latest buzz. Well, the truth is a lot of those people have trouble sticking on a team that is committed to delivering a product that the customer appreciates. It's really easy to play in a sandbox and develop something that nobody's ever going to use and feel good about yourself. But when you look in the mirror, did you contribute something to society that they're using today? And did you do that by building relationships with somebody along the way? To me, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was always envious of the NFL, of football. I had some buddies that scouted there and worked in offices, and because they can draft players and acquire players for their system. Right? There are some organizations that are really, really good at finding players that are undervalued in the market, but they know that we know how to utilize that kind of player because we've cracked that code for this specific area. And I think businesses do that all the time. And I think, and it sounds like you guys are like this, you don't, it's the difference between, I guess, just drafting a team based off of, doing an auto draft on your fantasy baseball team and just letting it go off of numbers versus actually knowing the individuals you're getting. And you'd rather take the lesser graded player or person that fits your system like a glove, because that number is going to go up because you're going to develop them and they're going to make you better. And it's fitting for a system rather than just taking them. Anybody can look at the talent and just say, yeah, well, that's the best resume. And that takes conviction. That's scary, right? And sometimes you get seduced by, well, that's a lot of talent, right? And you go against your instinct. And I'm the same way, man. I don't think it's ever worked. When I've gone against, I've had that spidey sense. I'm like, well, I'm going to trust my team on this one. And inevitably, It might not be tomorrow. It might be a year from now. But you're like, I do this. I go back and look at my notes.
Right.
I'm like, God damn it.
Right. Yeah, no. And I say that, recruiting and building a team is really, really, it's the most difficult thing we do as leaders. And if you're on your game and you do everything right and you study the background and you're just convinced that this is the right person, you're still probably only going to be right 90% of the time.
Yeah.
There's still a margin of error. But if you don't do those things, it's a 50-50 coin flip. And who wants to put their livelihood in a 50-50? There's nothing more disappointing for me than when we let a customer down. And a lot of times if we do let a customer down, which we try to minimize, but if we do, it usually boils down to human error. And maybe somebody didn't care as much about the success of this customer. But for us in these automation systems, there's a selection team that is putting their reputation at risk, and they're putting their whole livelihood in our hands. And if we don't deliver, we're letting them down. I had a huge customer last week tell me, and we're delivering a project for them. It's about $90 million total. and they have an expansion coming up. And he said, I'm not going to dangle this carrot, but I am at the same time. But he said, you know how much I personally have vested into this project. And I'm like, hey, I get it. We preach that all the time. This has to be successful for your organization, your shareholders, your publicly traded company. You know, you guys are betting on the future. And then you personally, you're the scapegoat. Like, if it doesn't work, you're the guy. Right. And so we don't want that.
Yeah. Well, it's that empathy, you know, that's ultimately what it comes down to. You said this at the very outset of the conversation, understanding the pain point, what makes them tick. I've encountered a lot of people that they have a ton of conviction in a way that they think things should be done or their approach to doing things. And it's sort of their personal conviction that's been shaped by their experiences, their successes, their failures. But if it doesn't capture, you know, if it's a client-facing business or if it's a customer-oriented business, like if it doesn't get your target audience, if that's not part of the algorithm, like you're like an artist at that point. You're just creating something and seeing if the world likes it. Like that's a bad strategy, right? So remaining customer-centric and keeping it at the outset, again, it's like simple stuff. Like most good businesses over the history of time have had their customer in mind when they're doing what they're doing. And, you know, the ones that kind of lose sight of that, just like anything else, it eventually comes, but you can get back with it. You can get away with it for a little while maybe, but it's going to bite you.
That's right. It always does.
All right, man, getting back to baseball to close this thing out. Who was your favorite player as a kid?
Well, by far and away, Will Clark. I was a Will Clark junkie. I probably had, he was the only baseball card I collected, and I had 100 or two. Yeah, just Will the Thrill. You know, my dad saw him play when he was in college at Mississippi State.
Yeah.
And then I just loved his swing. It was just such a beautiful swing, and his intensity. And, you know, he was just a throwback baseball player. Now, I loved the 84 Tigers, that whole 80s, you know, Tigers were just the team. But the player for me through the 80s and 90s was Will Clark.
And I was always envious of those sweet swinging lefties, man. I was right-handed, so I could put the perfect swing on it, and it never looked as good, right? Those lefties just Griffey and Will Clark and these guys, it just make it look so
Griffey's swing was so beautiful. And I used to have people video my swing, you know, just in BP. I mean, why does my swing look so pretty? You know, mine's more rough and like more.
It's like hearing your voice on tape. You're like, oh God, is that what I sound like?
Exactly.
Right.
Like that was the truth that, you know, the rubber meets the road when you see your swing compared to Will Clark's. But, you know, you got to be a student of everything you do. And I will say that, you know, it was his intensity. Even today, I'm told, like, he likes hitting off the tee still, and he still works on his swing. I don't know how old now. He's got to be 60-some years old, probably.
He's put on a couple LBs from some recent videos. I'm sure he can still rake. I mean, those guys, you know, Freddie Freeman was like that when he was the Braves. You could just tell. I mean, he worked hard and all that, but, like, he was just natural born hitter, you know, just barrel the ball, you know, some way, somehow I'm going to do it. And then you perfect it and craft it from there. But yeah, those guys, you know, it's in their blood too. You can't just put the bat down and never pick it up again.
No, you're right. You're exactly right. No, Will the Thrill, man. He was the real deal.
Yeah, he was. Well, Aaron, look, man, this was a ton of fun. I really appreciate you taking the time. Super excited about where you guys are going, Bastian. You know, rooting for you, all the expansion, all the growth. You know, and I love the way you're doing it. I mean, it stands out. You know, not just in business, but I think it stands out in team building organizationally anywhere right now. How convicted you guys are to your vision and your culture and how you're going about doing it. And it's obviously worked for you. So I'm sure it will continue to do so.
Well, it has worked for us, but remember the key is Kaizen, because what worked for us in the past might not work in the future. We got to continue to adapt and change, and we will. We work hard on that. So thank you. Thanks for the time. It was great catching up with you.
Yeah, likewise, Aaron. All right, man. Talk soon.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the No One Is Watching podcast. If you'd like to support the show, hit the subscribe button, leave a review, and share it with your friends. If you're interested in similar content focused on leadership, culture, and high performance, check out nooneiswatching.com. Your time is valuable, so I appreciate you spending some of it with me today. See you next time.